Welcome to the Spitzen-Körper Thelema. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky's studies in occultism emerged from the pages of Lucifer magazine between 1890 and 1892, a period when her philosophical society had already fractured into competing factions and her reputation had weathered scandal. This sequence of essays, particularly the material we're examining today, represents her most unsparing attempt to distinguish true occult philosophy from the vulgar magic-mongering that had infiltrated both Eastern and Western esoteric circles. She writes not as an apologist but as a corrective, addressing what she saw as a catastrophic confusion of categories that endangered both the seeker and the work. The tradition here is deliberately syncretic. Blavatsky reaches backward through Neoplatonism and Christian mysticism, sideways into the Hindu and Tibetan Buddhist discipline, and forward into what she frames as a restored science of consciousness. But her true lineage in these essays is Platonic, the insistence that the visible and invisible worlds obey immutable laws, and that ignorance of those laws does not excuse their violation. This is not romanticism. This is diagnosis. The passage opens with what amounts to a technical manual for the preparation of disciples drawn from Tibetan Buddhist monastic practice, the *Lamrim* instructions of Tsongkhapa. Blavatsky quotes 12 of 73 rules, each designed to harmonize the inner magnetic and electric natures of a teaching circle. What matters here is not the exoticism but the principle. That occult transmission requires not individual genius but collective attunement, that the body must be isolated from foreign influence while the heart opens to universal non-separateness, and that every rule, whether vegetarianism, celibacy, or avoidance of animal contact, serves a single end: the individuation of the aspirant's magnetic atmosphere. She then pivots to the West's catastrophic failure to meet these conditions. Western education has bred rivalry into the bone. Affection itself becomes an obstacle. The command to isolate oneself physically while merging inwardly with all beings strikes the European sensibility as cold, egotistical, inhuman. Blavatsky does not soften this contradiction. She restates it, and then she moves to her central indictment. The second portion of this essay, Occultism versus the Occult Arts, is where Blavatsky's true argument ignites. She has received letters from hundreds claiming occultist ambitions. They are, she declares, almost entirely on the highway to sorcery. They confuse magic power over natural laws through knowledge of their operation with occultism, the disciplined transformation of consciousness itself. They read Eliphas Levi's *dogmat ritual* as instruction rather than as encoded poetry. They think a guru and a mantra are sufficient. They want Zanoni or Count Street Germain without the decades of interior mortification. And because Western languages have been shaped by materialism, Blavatsky argues, we lack the lexical precision to name the distinction. Sanskrit, she notes, preserves it. English buries it under contempt. Magic has become synonymous with jugglery. Occultism itself is dismissed as medieval superstition. The West has no words because it has no desire to speak of what it regards as impossible. What strikes the careful reader is the escalating ruthlessness of Blavatsky's tone. She moves from diagnosis to something closer to pronouncement. The East has cultivated non-separateness from childhood. The West has cultivated envy. Eastern artists do not hate their competitors. Western artists are proverbial in their professional hatred. The aspirant in the West arrives already poisoned by the very education that made him literate enough to read her words. The rules given in *Lucifer* are not cruel impositions but mercies, the minimum hygiene required to work with forces that do not care about Western sentiment. And then the final passage, appended as if from another voice entirely, reframes killship not as obedience to rules but as a state of mind --a radical inversion that preserves the discipline while releasing it from literal enforcement. The outer rules matter only insofar as they serve the inner work. What matters absolutely is a spirit of absolute unselfishness and devotion to truth. Then follows self-knowledge and self-mastery. The commentary here traces a lineage from Platonic reminiscence through Christian apostolic theology, Hindu Advaita, and Buddhist emptiness doctrine, all traditions that insist the work is not the acquisition of power but the dissolution of the self that seeks power. Blavatsky's innovation is to render this inward turn as a technical requirement rather than a moral ideal. You cannot develop occult faculties while remaining emotionally entangled with your competitors because emotion generates magnetic interference. You cannot ingest animal flesh while pursuing higher knowledge because flesh carries the psychic imprint of the animal's death terror. These are not ethical abstractions. They are frequency hygiene. What she said here was a complete reversal of the magical imagination that had dominated the Renaissance and Baroque occultism of Agrippa, Paracelsus, and the grimoire tradition. The power does not come from commanding spirits or binding angels. It comes from the progressive extinction of the personal will. And the West, she insisted, had almost entirely mistaken the direction of the work. Next, Arthur Edward Waite, The Doctrine and Literature of the Kabbalah, the Spitzen-Körper Thelema. If this archive serves you, support it on Patreon. Link in the description.